Today on the podcast, we have NWSL Rookie of the Year, NWSL Midfielder of the Year, and Olympic gold medalist Croix Bethune. Croix had a historic rookie season in 2024 after being selected third overall in the draft. She ended the season with 5 goals and 10 assists in just 17 games. Croix, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the Women's Game.
I'm honored to be here talking to you, Sam, honestly.
Oh my gosh, that means so much to me. I'm like blushing.
Don't blush. I'm blushing. I can't stop smiling.
That is so sweet, Croy. I'm literally so honored and excited to have you. My first question for you is that I saw that you just recently got a dog, and I'm hoping you can tell us about him.
Yeah, so I just got a Staffordshire American Terrier mixed. He's mixed with a couple other things, but those are the main two. He's 11 months and about 7 days, but he's a big boy. He's like 72 pounds.
Oh my gosh, that is big. So it's like your dog, like he's going to be with you in DC and everywhere you go.
Yes, I got him in March when we got out in DC. My parents drove him up for me. His name is Kush, and he's like gray eyes. He's tan. He's just so handsome and sweet. He's the
Oh
cutest.
my gosh. Has it like totally changed your life? Like, are you so obsessed?
Yes, I'm obsessed
I
with
know.
him. And it's like nice coming home and someone's just like wagging their butt, excited to see you. It changes your day, honestly.
It really does. When I got my dog like oh my God, almost 5 years ago. And I was like, I'm like a dog person, but I was never like obsessed with dogs.
Yeah.
And now that I have him, I like literally am so obsessed. Like, he's the first thing I think about when I wake up. I like kiss him goodnight, like on the mouth. I literally couldn't love him anymore. He just walked in.
Oh,
So sweet. Okay, well, I'm obsessed. Kush, tell him I say hello.
I will.
All right, I want to go way back to the beginning. I read online that both of your parents or are actually members of the Air Force. So, correct me if this is wrong. You were born in the US, but your family was stationed in England for a while when you were young. What do you remember about living in England?
Correct. I was only like 4 years old, so not too much. I remember like stories. When we first moved to our little cottage, I asked our neighbors, I was like, "Do y'all want to play soccer?" And they just started laughing at me. And I'm like, "What did I do?" But it's football over there, you know? So they corrected me and just started playing football. We used to live on base. Just soccer is so different over there. And I think we still have a couple friends that like my parents try and keep in contact with, but I honestly loved it from what I can remember. It's just so different.
Yeah, for sure. Did you play with the boys' team when you were young there?
Yes. So my brother's 3 to 4 years older than me, and we went to a practice and they needed another player, and little old me just hopped in there and started playing with them until they came out with like a girls' team in the area.
Oh, cute. Okay,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What part of England was that?
Stratford area.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And have you been back around there since?
I've not. I want to so bad, but
I know. That would
we'll
be
see.
so cool to go back and like see if you remember. Okay, so then your family returned to Georgia. And I know that's where you mostly grew up. You were a standout club player. You eventually started getting called in with the youth national teams. And I actually also read that you tore your ACL training with the 17s for the first time. You've torn your ACL 3 times, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I do want to talk about that for a second. You tore your ACL in high school and then again twice during your college career. And like that must have been so awful. I have never torn my ACL, but of course I have struggled with a knee injury for a long time. What can you tell us about that first ACL recovery and how did that affect you mentally and physically being so young?
Yeah, so the first tear I'd probably say was the hardest. I was the type of player that like never got hurt. And for it to be a major injury like an ACL, just I felt like it broke me. It was also during like World Cup qualifiers for the U17. So I like missed the World Cup, missed freshman year of college. Um, Dang, I'm getting emotional.
Oh.
But it sucked because it was like I was missing out on key important times of my life within soccer, but it also showed me, like, how strong I am and how much I really do love soccer, and it kinda gave me a break, but I got to reset and reevaluate, like, not everything is just smooth, like, you have bumps in the road. So I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like a really tough lesson for such a young player to learn. I relate in a lot of aspects that it sounds like it was just set at such a tough time to miss out on playing in the 17th World Cup and then playing your freshman year of college. This time of transition and of like big opportunities, being injured during that must have been so brutal. But to your point, and going through injuries again in your career, you must have been you learned how to do it and how to grapple with that. I'm curious, when you were returning to play during any of those ACL injuries, how did you kind of get back to playing freely? Like, were there any mental hurdles specifically you really had to overcome in order to play without fear of injury?
Yeah, so the way the first one happened, I was taken out by the goalkeeper, like, way outside the 18. Um, so, like, coming back to playing, it took me a while to not think about how it happened, especially, like, going 1v1 with the goalie or them running out. Like, I'd think about pulling out, but I feel like I taught myself how to be smarter in those situations, and then also just you can't be scared or else you will get injured. Um, so yeah, just retraining my brain and go all in or don't go at all, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. That's again so difficult, especially for such a young player to get their head around. But I know that you wound up at USC, just a little bit ways away from me. I went to UCLA. And then you had a really standout career at USC, but you ended up transferring to the University of Georgia. So I'm curious, that was just for your last season, right?
Well, it was my 5th year. It was a 5th year.
Okay, I'm curious what factors went into deciding to transfer even though you were so successful at USC?
Unfortunately, I tore my ACL again that last season, and that made the decision like, okay, let's take another year to reset, bounce back, and get back right. So that was kind of the main decision. But then also my coaching staff, like Kadani, Jason, Jill, they went to Georgia. And for my 5th year, it was their 2nd year there. So it just kind of worked out perfectly. I'm like, I have family there. This is my home. And then the staff, I'm very comfortable with them. That's like my second family. So it was too perfect.
Wow. When you're making a decision like that, I mean, you're dealing with an injury, you're deciding if you should stay, do another year in college, transfer, go pro. Who in your life is like weighing in and helping you make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah, my parents, of course. I'm big on family and they've just always been there. I honestly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Um, but them and then one of my former club coaches who I've known for quite a while, just I like to take in people's opinions just to compare contrast, but also see it from a different point of view. And then one of my best friends that I've kind of been playing with for a while, we've been talking about it and I feel like she always looks out for me, not just for her benefit or what could be the best option, but like long term. Yeah.
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 That sounds like such a great support system. I'm so glad you have that as you are
Thank you.
just starting your professional career. At the beginning of 2024, you were drafted third overall to the Washington Spirit. And as a rookie, fresh out of college, I'm curious, like, were you nervous about preseason? Did you have any trepidation about that transition from college to professional?
Honestly, no, just because I feel like I've been prepared so well. But also you can't really go into things without expectations because you can't control what's not able to be controlled, you know? So as long as I focus on myself and really for me staying healthy, there's no other way I could fail.
Yeah. And what was preseason like? Like, how did you adapt and like even socially get into the team?
Yeah, I feel like this wasn't a typical or normal preseason for the Spirit. We had a lot of new players. We didn't really have a coach yet. That was kind of weird in a sense, but also I feel like the group of women there have made it so smooth. Like it you wouldn't have known that we didn't have a coach or there's a bunch of different new people on the team. It just flowed.
Well, you immediately got off to a great start. You were scoring goals, getting assists, and really running a lot of the Spirit's attack. Your creativity on the ball and your technical execution were so unmatched. It was like inevitable and very clear to all of us that you'd get called into the national team really, really soon. It was just right before the Olympics. So it seemed like a really short transition time. But you got called into that June camp, which was right before the tournament. What was that call up like for you? Like, do you remember how you found out you were going into camp?
Yeah, It was actually an email when we were on a away trip, and a couple of us were, like, talking about it, and they're like, "Did you get a call? Did you get an email?" And I'm kinda confused, it's early in the morning.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, our coach announced it right before our meeting, and just the whole team was ecstatic for us, but yeah, it was an amazing feeling, like, I feel like this has been one of my dreams and a goal that I've wanted to reach since the youth camp, so just trying to get like you, Sam, you know?
Oh my gosh. I know. I actually was just going to tell my story. When I first got called into camp, I was in college at UCLA. And I think I got just like this rogue text from the team coordinator. And I like wasn't really sure it was real because it was just like, we need an extra player for training tomorrow. Like the team was in camp in LA and I was in LA. And so I was just I started like kind of asking around, like, is this who would be reaching out to me? Like, do I have to go to the Home Depot Center tomorrow? Um, so it was like a little bit anticlimactic, but it was obviously so exciting. Um, when you got into camp, obviously your Spirit teammates were so happy for you. You go into that June camp and like it's the camp before the Olympics. Did you think I'm gonna make this Olympic team? Like that's what I'm going for?
Honestly, that wasn't even in my thoughts or my brain. I was just trying to focus on this camp and get through. Like it's your first camp and you want to do well. So that was kind of my main focus.
Yeah. Do you feel like you did well?
Well, I think I did well enough. I got called back.
Yeah.
But I'm hard on myself, so I think I did decent. Like I could have done better, but
What would you say like the change was? I mean, you're doing so great for the Spirit, so great in the league. Was there a different level? Was there one element that stood out to you that was harder? Was there anything like that?
I'd say it was a different role for me that I don't think
Mm.
I've ever had before. So it's allowed me to like learn more about myself in that moment, but also embrace where I am. Like you're among the best players, so and you're one of the best players, so kind of seeing my way through the process and just embracing and taking everything in.
Did you feel positionally like it was like the same expectations? Obviously, you're an attacking midfielder, but you're great on both sides of the ball. Did you feel that positionally and what was being asked of you tactically translated?
Actually, yes. I feel like the tactics and the formation that Emma wants to play, I'm very familiar with and comfortable with to play within the style that she wants. So I would say that was kind of one of the easiest transitions for me.
That's really great. I think when there is that kind of consistency between what you're being asked to do at club and country, it's kind of seamless to go back and forth, which over the next few years you'll have to do a million times. And going back and forth, I think can be a big challenge because you have to kind of like adjust, especially if you're playing different positions or your club is in a different formation. But it's really great that so far you have found that both teams are asking for similar things from you. Were you nervous in the June camp?
A little bit. I'd say that's the first time I've had nerves in a while. This is just like a next level, and it's like you don't want to mess up. So
Yeah, I imagine that you like admired and looked up to the national team your whole life.
yeah.
So going in, was it like a moment? Was there a moment of like, oh my God, I did it, I made it? Or were you too focused on like the task to kind of soak that in?
I'd say, like, the first day, yes, and then, like, certain players that I've, like, looked up to, I'm like, "Okay, like, I'm really here with them." But after, like, this, because there's a lot of people on the team I do know and have played with since I was younger, but, like, after the 2nd day, I'm like, "Okay, like, you have a job to do. Let's lock in."
Yeah, for sure. So you got through that June camp. You obviously did good enough to get called back. You were named as an alternate for the Olympic team. When you found that out, did you like, this is kind of a hard question. Did you view that as an accomplishment? Like, wow, I made an Olympic team after one camp? Or were you kind of disappointed that you weren't in the top 18 of the roster?
Honestly, both, I shoot for the top, so I feel like anyone would prefer to actually be on the roster, but being an alternate is honestly just as great. You get to go, you're still a part of the team, and honestly, just like how things turned out, you never know what's going to happen or when the team is going to need you. So for me, I was just more so grateful that I even got called there. I only had one camp before, so
It was an incredible accomplishment. I think something that interests me that you just said is that you shoot for the top, and I think that is kind of a self-assuredness that I wish I had when I was a younger player. I think going into the national team when I was your age, I always was kind of like, well, Lauren Holiday's in front of me, Carly Lloyd's in front of me, Lindsay Horan's in front of me, and I always kind of was like, it's okay if you don't start because you're here and you're learning and you're growing. And I think that having my sights set higher sooner would have really benefited me. So I'm actually so excited to hear you say something like, I shoot for the top. And of course, I wanted to be in there. And you still have such a great attitude about what the opportunity that you did get. I'm curious. I was also an alternate. Sorry, I'm like making this so about me. I was an alternate in 2016. And so I know that it can be really difficult to manage your training load as an alternate because you're not necessarily the priority. And then also your own emotions. It's such a heightened time for the team. You're kind of flying under the radar at times. What do you remember feeling like as the team trained and prepared for that first Olympics game?
Yeah, I don't wanna say left out, but as an alternate, your purpose is to make sure that the team is ready, but also that you're ready just in case. So, for me, just analyzing like you mentioned, there were a couple people in front of you. For me, analyzing what Mal was doing or, people in my position. So, if that opportunity were to come, then I would know what to do, but also, like, making sure that she or the other players were ready.
Yeah, definitely. I learned so much about like being a good teammate when I was an alternate because I had to kind of put myself second, but like you said, also stay ready and like keep myself in enough shape and sharp enough to go in if I was asked. But
Exactly.
there were times when the player in front of me was the priority and I had to kind of give them that platform to like take an extra rep or here you have my ball and you shoot and I'll go run and grab it for you, which was really really hard but such an important lesson for me. And like you said, you stayed ready. You ended up making the roster of 18 when Jaden Shaw's injury kept her from the field, and you played in the Australia game. Obviously, I know it's bittersweet when there's like an injury to a teammate, but you played in an Olympic game. What was going through your mind when you realized you were going to dress and then when you stepped on the field?
Well, when I heard the news, I was like, "Dang," because I feel like Jay and I got pretty close at camp. I love her, but more so like flipping it, I was like, "Okay, like this is what you've been waiting for, like the time is here." And then just to walk up to the half line when I was subbed in, I'm like it kinda looked like I was mad, but I was like more so focused, like, "Okay, like you're coming into the game, like here you go."
Yeah.
And just to not mess up. I was obviously like very excited, but still, like, this is a job that I need to get done, so I don't wanna mess up.
I know. Was that game like stressful at all?
I wouldn't say it was stressful, but, like, I think it was 2-1 because Corbin just scored, and then it was like, "Okay, like, this is a critical time of the game, and you're
Right.
going in, so she must trust you, but also, like, we have to finish the game out." And that was kinda my main focus is, like, finish the game out.
Right. Did Emma say anything to you before you went out there?
Yeah, she was like, "Here you go, this is your time, do your thing, and enjoy it." And
Oh,
I
I
was
just kind of got chills.
her words mean a lot. She's just so inspiring and she's a great coach, but she's also just a great individual. So it means a lot.
Oh, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
What do you remember about the final, the gold medal game? Like, do you remember watching Mal score and being like, oh my God, we're going to get a gold medal?
That game was so intense. We started standing up at the end and we just see Mal running and we're all like holding each other back like she's scoring.
Oh my
She's
God.
scoring. And we all just started jumping around screaming and it was like we're gonna win gold. Like it was crazy.
That is so cool. And did you like have a full understanding? Like, I know sometimes with alternates, it's like, well, what's happening? Who's dressing? Who's getting a medal? Did you like know you were going to get a medal?
Yes.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so you won Olympic gold. I think that's something that sounds like kind of commonplace for US women's national team players, but it's like one of the highest possible accomplishments for athletes. What was it like for you? I mean, you're so young. Did you dream about the Olympics as a kid?
Yeah, once I found out what national team was in the Olympics, I was like, "Yeah, I want a gold for sure."
So how did it feel to like finally get one?
Amazing. It still feels unreal. Sometimes I walk in my room and I see it and I'm like, wow. But I also feel like I sometimes don't give myself credit for the gold just because like I said I shoot for the top, so but everyone around me is just like you were there, you did work to get there, you played a little bit, so don't count yourself out.
Yeah, do you just mean that you want to have a more influence on the team and have a role where you're on the field more?
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm very hard on myself, so I want to physically make an impact, but being an alternate and being there, you still are making an impact. Like every person counts. So I do look at it in that way, but just personally, like in my head, I'm like, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I've seen you doing some broadcasting and I'm super curious. I started doing a podcast towards the end of my career, especially when I was injured. I found that it really like helped me have a sense of purpose when again, I like couldn't control how my injury was going. And I'm curious if you found that in some other things you're interested in outside of soccer.
Most definitely. I feel like even though I am young, I've been focusing on like business outside of the soccer field. And thinking long term. And I also feel like it helps you as a player just balance life and let off stress or steam that you may have. So yeah, hopefully I can kind of be in your position later on in life. That'd be so much fun.
Oh my gosh, literally anytime you want to do anything with the women's game, we would love to have you. And I really do think it's so smart to I think I always like, especially when I was younger, I was like, soccer is it. It's the only thing I can focus on. I have no more capacity to do anything else. And I think I learned as I got older that I did have more capacity to do other things. And having an outlet, just how you said, outside of just kind of the rigors of playing professional soccer and the stress was really, really fun, especially at the beginning of doing a podcast. We were just so goofy and it was this way for Lynn and I to stay connected. And I started really loving it. And that when my career unfortunately ended a lot sooner than I would have liked for it to, I like had this thing I knew I liked and this thing that I knew I was passionate about. And it made that transition a lot easier. So I think what you're doing is so smart. Back to the Spirit. I know you mentioned at the beginning your team went through a coaching transition this year. Jonathan Heraldez came to the Spirit from Barcelona. I know you didn't get to play that much for him this fall, but what have you seen from him that makes you excited to have him as your coach?
Honestly, he's a winner, and I love that.
I love
But
that.
he's also very intelligent, like, I can just tell when we're training or we're watching film, the way that he's breaking down the details and how much like, how important each detail is. One day I was just sitting back and I'm like, "Wow, like, he really knows what he's doing, he really knows what he's talking about." And when we take that information and go back on the field, it's just kinda set in stone and so organized. He also has a great personality, he's so funny. So I feel like we have a great balance of a coach and then a person, and honestly, I can't wait to see what we're gonna do next year.
I do feel that, and I'm sorry again, that losing in the championship can really like set the stage for the following year to just kind of be like the Spirit's revenge year. So I am also very excited to see what you guys do next year. Jonathan's arrival and then the Spirit's success this year are kind of all part of Michelle Kang's influence on the club. How much do you interact with Michelle and what's her relationship with the players like?
We interact with her as much as we can. She's a busy woman, but I feel like she's very involved in the sense of how important we are. She wants to make sure that we're taken care of. And what she's been doing away from the Spirit with just her other teams and women's soccer in general is actually very inspiring. Um, I feel like she's a great leader for us to look up to off the field. So we want to do the best that we can because we're also a representative of her. So.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like when you see her investing so much in you and caring so much about you, you're like, I want to honor that and I want to give my best and show her that this means a lot to us. I'm very excited to see you with the Spirit in 2025. And I know that you set goals for yourself, you manifest, and like you said on this podcast, you shoot for the top. What are some things you have in mind for this upcoming year? What do you want to accomplish in 2025?
Mainly staying healthy And then just to keep it kinda broad, like, build off of last year, I feel like just increasing and elevating, honestly.
I love that. Okay, I have one last question for you, and this is something that I am so well, I don't play anymore, sadly, but I have been desperate to figure this out my whole career. What is the secret to assists?
I don't know. I feel like I just have had natural soccer IQ, but you just gotta read the game, like, if people think that you're gonna score or shoot all the time, then that means somebody else is open, so I just trust them, and if you wanna come to me, then I have someone else on my team who can score, you know?
It's just something I never quite nailed, Croy, I have to admit. But I am so excited for you that you have nailed it. And I'm so grateful that we got to do this. It was so much fun to chat with you again. And I hope we can be friends now. I'm here for you anytime if you need anything.
Y'all heard that. Sam is my friend now.
I'm really, really excited to watch you play this upcoming NWSL season. And thank you again for being here. It was so fun.
Thanks for having me, Sam.